Yo, 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 Manny.
Hey,
Dímelo, primo.
dímelo, ¿cómo estamos? We good?
Yeah, man, you good? Yo, what's your take on the Mariners this year? They're looking pretty good. I mean, last year, Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, they're pretty beast this year. They have a couple prospects coming up,
Oh, it's Kevin Mathers, former president of the Seattle Mariners.
Oh shit, yo, what are you doing
What
out
brings you
here?
here?
What are you doing in Newark, man?
What brings you along?
Julio Rodriguez has got a personality bigger than all of you combined. He is loud. His English is not tremendous.
Okay, so enough about Julio. What about Kyle Seager? Let's talk about Kyle Seager.
Kyle Seager, this is probably his last season as a Mariner. Is a veteran player. He's probably overpaid.
Yo, remember that pitcher Iwakuma for the Seattle Mariners?
Yeah. It was a guy. It was pretty good.
Kevin, what you got? Anything to say about?
Iwakuma was a pitcher for us for a number of years. Wonderful human being. His English is terrible. We quite frankly want him as our Asian scout interpreter. What's going on in the Japanese league? He's coming to spring training, and I made the same. I'm tired of paying his interpreter because when he was a player, we pay Iwakuma X, but we also had to pay $75,000 a year to have an interpreter with him. His English suddenly got better.
Excuse me.
His English got better
in Newark,
when we told him that. So.
New Jersey. But we're in a Cuban neighborhood. This guy's talking about not speaking English? Are you kidding me?
Got a clue, man. I don't even know why you came here for.
Next customer. I'm going to start this off a way that I never start shows, and it's probably the most professional way that you can start a show. I'm just going to go right ahead and say, I'm Manny Gomez, alongside my co-host, my cousin, my primo, my brother from another mother, Luis Gomez. We are Bodega Baseball. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, you get a little extra sauce, if you know what I'm talking about, because you get the skit in the beginning of the show. Whereas if you're listening in the podcast, you get the skit, but you kind of don't know what's happening because there's some stuff that aren't said. So check out the YouTube video, even if you're just watching the opening skit, which is a minute, 2 minutes, something like that. But if you're listening on the podcast, subscribe as well, rate, review, do all that nice stuff. Luis, how you doing, man?
I'm all right, man. Spring training is upon us. So it's a beautiful day out today. What's today? Wednesday? Tuesday? Today's Wednesday?
Today's Thursday, but they're listening, we're recording on
Thursday.
Wednesday.
It's Thursday for them. It's a beautiful day yesterday.
Indeed. But I did get plowed with a ton of snow again earlier this week. I'm not gonna lie.
You got plowed. Me
personally, just
you
me.
got plowed.
It was just right. It hit me where I didn't even expect it. It just came up right behind me. I didn't even know what was happening.
Snuck up behind you there.
Snuck up right behind me there, and I was out there laboring my hind parts off, shoveling away, and just not all that white stuff. It just would not stop. But wouldn't stop. Just wouldn't stop, man.
Damn.
That white powdery snow I'm talking about. Anyway, at the start of the show, so you saw Kevin Mather there, and he said some controversial stuff. So we're going to take a deep dive. And it's not necessarily about what he said, but more about some stuff surrounding what he was saying, right? So, and it became a big topic yesterday because Gerrit Cole also had some comments, and there were a few people on Twitter having conversations about analytics and so on and so forth. So I figured today would be the perfect day to talk about this topic. And the topic is, are analytics being used to manipulate service time and suppress player salaries? So just general thoughts right away. What's your take, man? Do you think that analytics are being used to manipulate service time and suppress salaries? What do you think?
No, I don't know if I could say analytics are being used to manipulate service time, because take analytics out of the game. I mean, you have a phenom in your farm system, and the way the rules are currently in place, it's just always going to benefit a team to try to retain that player longer before having to extend him. So I feel like that would still be a part of the game, regardless if people could use analytics to diminish a player's value. I still feel like that would be part of the game.
Okay. Well, okay. So this guy who I've been following for a little while now had the perfect tweet, and that's kind of what started it for me yesterday. This is what he said. His name is Brad Johnson, by the way. If you want to follow him, it's at Baseball A Team. Go check him out. He has a decent following. He has some pretty strong takes on Twitter. This is what he said. I've avoided reaching this conclusion for a long time. Pre Moneyball, owners, front office staff were running an optimized system. The optimization was for entertainment value rather than wins. The shift to optimizing for wins has been almost uniformly bad for the sport. We, the online baseball community, all have a small sliver of responsibility for this, but it was the owners who recognized there's more money to be made pinching for wins rather than entertainment. Plus, it's so much easier to measure for wins. Anyway, so essentially, he's saying since the Moneyball era, the focus on the game on behalf of the owners and front office staff has been how do we win games? What's the best way to win games um, cheaply, I guess, without spending so much money? Before that, their their main focus was how do we put the best product on the field so that we can have more eyeballs watching the screen, more ads, so on and so forth. So I can see his point. I think he's right in a lot of ways because it was post Moneyball that you started seeing teams like the Tampa Bay Rays competing with a super low payroll. Teams like the Oakland A's who did it out of necessity. I think they didn't have the money, so they had to do this. Um, Play Moneyball and stuff like that. But I think that in the long run, it's hurt the game because we've seen popularity go down and we're seeing people take those tacks that teams like the Tampa Bay Rays and the Oakland A's use to try to sort of save money while at the same time winning more games. And so you're seeing more home runs and more strikeouts instead of more balls in play, more phenomenal defensive plays, and so on and so forth. Because analytically, it makes sense to hit more home runs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I feel like what's the difference if you're putting out the best product has always been about the best team. So aren't they still trying to put out the best team? I know you're I know you're saying like instead of going out and getting the best pitcher out there, you go out and get a really great opener and a really great pitcher. I guess I know what you're saying, but
Right.
the the goal is to still like you're still gonna field the best guys out there. So how is that any different? What I'm saying is that the best guys are still gonna play at the professional level.
Right. Um, that's true. It's always going to be the top level talent is are the cream rises to the top. So the best players are always going to be the ones to make it to Major League Baseball. Is that the point you're trying to make? Okay. So
I,
so I
yeah,
guess what I'm trying to say is that whereas in one point and Alex Rodriguez or a Jason Giambi, I'm using Yankee people because I grew up in New York and stuff. But
that's not your fault.
Albert Pujols, let's say for example, got these monster contracts. I think in this day and age, teams are avoiding giving out those monster contracts to those elite players because for the price of an Albert Pujols who makes something like 24 million, I don't know how much it is exactly. They could go out and get two guys, or they might go out and try to pick up prospects or whatever that now they have so much good information that they know there's a good chance those guys are going to hit and be better for their team. You get what I'm trying to say here?
No, yeah, I completely understand it, but like in Albert Pujols' case, like he is an aging talent, so I feel like I'm still trying to figure out why analytics is the driving force between. It almost just seems like having more information in general
Yeah.
is was gonna. It's like we're gonna get here anyways, regardless if analytics has taken over the sports, which it has. I feel like we were gonna get here anyways because it makes sense that you wouldn't pay Albert Pujols this
Right.
amount of money if you can go out and get someone younger and cheaper. So I feel like that's always hasn't that always been like
I think yes and no, because the person responsible for the analytic revolution, Bill James, started writing about these new baseball stats and stuff years before the Oakland A's finally started implementing it. I think it was like in the 80s potentially. I don't know. I don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure it was like in the 80s, maybe even the late 70s. I'm not entirely 100% sure. So they've always had all that information, or at least they've always had a good amount of information. Like for Bill James, OPS, on base plus slugging, was the key factor to everything. People weren't using those things until very recently. You know what I mean? Like if you watched a baseball game even 10 years ago, they wouldn't put up on base and slugging on the screen,
mhm.
or somebody's I've been seeing whip and stuff, and like you didn't used to see stuff like that. You're seeing statcast stats now on TV. We didn't used to see things like that before. So I think that there has been and I'm trying to find the right words for it. There has been uh a a shift made on purpose. That's the best way I can phrase it, to save money or to optimize the talent that you have on the field while at the same time saving money. Like the Tampa Bay Rays, for example. They're okay with letting a Charlie Morton walk away. They're okay trading a Blake Snell. Like those guys were never going to be on that team long term because they make too much money. What they're going to do instead is they're going to develop young pitchers, which is great. You're giving more people chances or whatever. But at the same time, what you're also doing is paying guys who make less money than a guy like Blake Snell is gonna command via a relief pitcher or two who can come in for an inning or two and pitch 100 miles an hour for an inning or two. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's almost like while they're pinching pennies for wins, and I think they have to do it out of necessity because they're not the Yankees, they're not the Boston Red Sox, and so on and so forth. You're also changing the game at the same time, because now the game isn't about how long a guy can go, how many complete games this guy can toss, how many innings he can go. Now it's about what's the best way for me to get through 9 innings and try to get that win. And the formula is I'll pay a pitcher who can give me 5 innings, probably not going to cost as much as a Gerrit Cole. And then I could pack up the back end of the pen of the rotation or of the staff with guys who don't make that much money, but they throw really hard. You know what I mean? So
Well,
you know what? Like you're changing the fabric, how the game is played in a way. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
no, I completely understand that. And so two things real quick. Like I don't know if it's playing for wins because if you put wins first, then Blake Snell stays on the Rays. If you put wins first, they don't have another Blake Snell in their team right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and going all bullpen, it happened with the Rays. It happened with the Yankees. By the time they got to the playoffs, even in a 60-game season, by the time they got to the playoffs, not all those pitchers were on the same uh wavelength, I guess, and some of them looked worn out. I guess you can say the same thing happened the year before. So again, like if you're playing for wins, you have to look at what's happening by the time we finish the season. These bullpen arms are all gassed out. And again, if you're playing for wins, then Blake Snell stays on the Rays because he's a talent that you need on your team. You need an ace like Blake Snell to win championships. So I don't know if they're just doing it for wins. I agree they're doing it to save money. That's obvious. But I don't think it's for wins. I think it's just more of like, let us be good enough to keep us in contention. Maybe we run into one, maybe we win the World Series with this budget team, whatever. But what you said before, like things like on base percentage and OPS and whip were never on the screen before. Again, like I feel like that only impacts like maybe like 2% of the pitchers you'll see on a list because more often than not, it's still going to be Max Scherzer, it's still going to be Gerrit Cole, it's still going to be Trevor Bauer, like the guys that would have hit on the stats from the old days are most likely going to be in the leaderboards for the new stats that we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Where and again, that's going to lead to those players being the most talented on the field. They're going to be the ones signing the biggest contract. So I think we'd be back to square one, regardless of how much analytics comes into play.
Okay. And so before we continue on, let me play really quick Garrett Cole's comments on this, and then we could react on that really quick.
I think in the end, what we're looking for is a balance. Like, I certainly don't want to restrict somebody's knowledge or trying to find some sort of an edge. Um, with numbers. Those people they have a place in the game. Like Zach grabs fish. I mean, these guys are invested as any player. And this is just specifically speaking about our organization. And I would assume that, other organizations that I've been to, so a lot of the league kind of operates with, they're good people there. Now, how that information is, played out. If you're trying to win, you want to be able to provide, you want to have like an open field for clubs to compete, like in all different areas, compete in analytics, compete over players, etc. Now, when the analytics are used to suppress salary or to manipulate service time or to, um, for things other than trying to put the best product on the field, that's concerning. But like, I don't know if I'm in a position to be able to say like, you can only use analytics so much. Like, you can use it as much as probably you want, certainly under the rules. I would just like to see it applied, um, so that, it doesn't hinder the product or it doesn't hurt the product. And sometimes we have to learn, we just have to learn from our mistakes in that regard. I would hope if you pulled a pitcher too early, in a pivotal game in the World Series, that the next time, if you had the opportunity to get there, you would maybe make a different decision, but the only way you're going to learn, the only way you're going to learn that that's the wrong decision is by making a wrong call, I guess. So, um, we all got to learn and we all got to get better. I just don't want to see that kind of stuff used to make the product worse or to manipulate overhead. Yeah, that's just stupid.
I understand how someone could say analytics is being used to like diminish a player's value, because with analytics, like you said, a guy like Blake Snell doesn't go past the sixth inning. I didn't see Blake Snell go into the sixth inning, I think, until like the last three starts of last season. And I
I
know he
don't
was
think he
coming
did.
back from,
Yeah, I think he
yeah,
went
and
into it, but he never finished it. I don't think.
I know he was coming back from injury like at the
Mhm.
start of the season. So I understand, yeah, like in that sense, it's being used to diminish, and I agree that is being used to diminish a player's value. But I also feel like if Blake Snell was even better, I know he can't get much better than that game 6 in the World Series
Yeah.
where he was dominating. But I mean, if it's almost like I feel like a Walker Bueller doesn't get the same treatment as Blake Snell, or like Gerrit Cole wouldn't be treated like that on the Rays. If the Rays somehow got their hands on Gerrit Cole, you're getting 8 inning Gerrit Cole. You're not getting like, I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want your pitcher to eat up the bulk of the innings and reduce the strain on your bullpen,
Mhm.
right? Why
I
wouldn't you
saw.
want to do that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, but I think that's organizational too. I think Walker Bueller is not getting pulled out because he's a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are analytical, but they're not like the Tampa Bay Rays. I feel like Gerrit Cole, um, also is not going to get pulled out because he's a member of the New York Yankees. They're analytical, but they're not the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays, I feel like you replay that game over and over and over again 100 times, 99 times, they're going to make the same move,
Yeah, I
even
agree.
though even though it was probably the wrong move. I think it's because, and it's proven, they have enough data to this point. They know their bullpen is so deep that let me pull out Blake Snell here. Let me not take my chances, and I'm gonna get, it's the sixth inning. I think they pulled him out in the sixth inning with one out. I need to get, I need to calculate outs now. 9, 10 outs from my bullpen. I have enough guys back there that can throw gas, and chances are they can probably strike out most of my opponent. It just didn't work that time. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
and let's be fair. I think Mookie was on deck in that
Was he?
situation.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think he
Mookie
was.
was on deck
I
in that
think you're right.
situation. So let's just be fair. Like, yeah, I think Blake Snell's great, but I don't think he's on the same level of like Gerrit Cole and
Right.
those guys, or
I just think he was
DeGrom,
so
right?
dominant that game that everybody was just
Yeah,
like,
he
what?
he was dominant that game, but I don't think any other I don't think the Rays are alone in being the only team that would have pulled him out in that situation, because
Right.
they did have a stack. The guy they brought in, Nick Anderson, I think it was like the best reliever all
Mm-hmm.
year.
And
Um,
he was blowing saves left and right in the postseason last year.
yeah, yeah, I get it. I get it. I'm just saying I don't think the Rays are alone in that. The only thing, and so I agree that the analytics are driving the value of some of these players, right?
Mhm.
But regardless, I don't think Blake Snell's on that DeGrom Cole level. I think he's more of like a Trevor Bauer-ish, even less
Right.
than I would say like around that. Um, so I don't think it would make that huge of a difference versus the money that he's gonna make. Like if they're gonna look at him and be like, "Well, you look like you never make it past the sixth inning." Like I feel like you don't need to see Degrom go past the sixth inning to know Degrom is like on another
Yeah.
level, right? So whatever. I'm just speaking in terms of like the feel and everything. The one thing I still don't understand though is why are we saying that analytics are being used to uh for service time to like manipulate service time? I feel like
So
that's gonna
okay,
as long as they're allowed to do that, doesn't matter what happens if they have generational talent in the farm system. Why wouldn't you want to manipulate his service time?
so for organizationally speaking, yeah, if the Yankees, or let's use I have two examples right here. Chris Bryant, right?
Yeah,
Chris Bryant, his service time was, that was probably the first time that I had ever heard of service time manipulation when they did it
same.
to Chris Bryant. And you saw why they did it, because it made sense for the organization. For the organization, I hold this guy back 2, 3 weeks. So I sacrifice 10 games so that I can have him for another year. And not just that, I have him for another, have control over him over another year. I delay arbitration 1 year and I delay free agency 1 year. So the organization overall is saving money. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So maybe it's not analytics. I don't know. Maybe that's just an entire conversation completely. But I feel like you didn't hear about things like this happening before. For me, it was Chris Bryant.
Yeah, no, same.
But around that era, and I don't know if that's a CBA thing. I don't know if maybe this didn't exist before that happened, but it's definitely something that needs to change.
I have a suggestion
Yeah.
that I played around in my head, but didn't go too deep into it. What would you say? And I know the negative consequences of this, but what would you say if MLB adopted what the NFL and the NBA do, which is the players that they draft are on the baseball team next year.
Hmm.
Start print and you get rid of the farm systems. You get rid
Get
of minor
that's
league
a yeah.
baseball.
Get rid of the minor leagues.
And then this way, your players, let's say they kept the 6 year retention of a player. Players start that as soon as they start. They get to negotiate their contracts after the first year, the same way they do in the NFL, I think, or after like the third year. I don't really know. The point is, the draft is exciting in the NFL and the NBA because these players getting drafted in the first 2 rounds are impacting the team next season.
Mhm.
And I think that would make it more exciting for baseball on a year to year. Like
Well,
it's
and
a quick
then
return. You get to
yeah,
see Fernando Tatis like or Bryce Harper the year he got drafted. The only
then
negative
you
is all those minor league players are shit out of luck. Whoops.
well, that's not exactly true. You might empower minor league teams to not be tied to Major League Baseball, because what could happen is that a minor league team could be the ones to go out and scout the players, right? They're not affiliated with a Major League Baseball team. Let's say the the Staten Island Yankees, they hear, oh, there's this new kid coming up, Fernando Tatis Jr. He's trying out in the DR, blah blah blah. They go out, they send their scouts, they sign him for a very limited deal. I don't know, and then every year you have a draft and you're drafting players from these minor league teams. Maybe they do it that way, or maybe you make college baseball more relevant. Then you know what I mean, and you draft
Yeah.
kids that they have to go to college to get drafted into Major League Baseball. And then you could ask the question, how is that going to impact players in the Dominican Republic who don't have a college education or blah blah blah? And I get it. I totally agree with that. Then my response to that would be, you should bring back foundations like a few. You've heard a few interviews or for a few guys that I've talked to, Tony Diaz, Luis Ortiz, an interview coming up soon with Rolando Fernandez. These are three guys that came through foundations that gave these guys college educations. They got into minor league systems, and now they're in high positions in Major League Baseball teams. You don't have, they have more opportunities. They don't just have to play baseball. Maybe they could become a coach. Maybe they could work in a front office. You know what I mean?
That
So
or
maybe
maybe
you
they
do stuff like that. You know what I mean?
could have two drafts, like a 2 round college draft for the America, and then an international
An
draft of like
international
5 rounds or something. I don't know, but the point is that the NFL draft is like a party. It's like an event. It's
Yeah,
like a holiday, and it's because those first 10 guys are going to impact their team next
right
season.
away.
Their spotlight is on them for the next year or so, right? And then you get to look at the impact the next 5 years. Like, Baker Mayfield was taken before Sam Darnold, and look how their careers are playing out. What team missed out on this guy? It's almost like in baseball, we don't care about, unless you're super into baseball, you don't care about the draft, or like you just care about the guys that are ranked at the top. There's
And
like
you're
pretty
and it's a
much.
waiting game. You're sitting around waiting for these guys to come up. Like they've been hyping up Jason Dominguez for years now, and he's only 18, and he's
Yeah.
probably not going to get called up for another 2 or 3 years. You know what I mean? You're just waiting around, and then
Hmm.
if he gets called up, he might be a bust. You never know.
Yeah.
Maybe they implement like an NBA system where you draft to play, but if you're not good enough, you go into the D League or whatever until you could build up your, and the D League is the minor leagues. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have talked to guys about that, and I think it was in the Luis Ortiz interview. He was not in favor of something like, because he thinks that it just takes too long. It takes a long time for a player to develop big league skills. You have to be a special kind of player. But to your point, no matter what happens, the cream will rise to the top. So
Oh, more often than
eventually,
not. More often than not.
yeah, eventually the best players are the ones that are going to stay in the big leagues and they're going to dominate, and
I don't
the
want to.
bad
Yeah,
players are going to.
I don't want to just paint like a giant brush over every player and say if you were good enough, you would have made it, because there's all these cases like internationally, like you don't know what these guys go through. But I think more often than not, if you're meant to be at the professional level, if you're a Mike Trout, you'll find your way
Right.
to the top more often than not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again,
So
I'm not advocating to get rid of the minor league system so all these guys are out of jobs. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying maybe a solution to some of this could be just whoever you draft is automatically competing for a spot on the major league roster. I don't
yeah.
know.
And then the thing too is with someone like Kevin Mather, who admitted in that whatever he did there, that they do manipulate service time, that some guys are overpaid and this and that. And he talks about how the Mariners don't have as much money as other teams, and the pandemic hurt them, a lot because there were no fans in the stadiums and so on and so forth. But then you look at what the San Diego Padres did with Fernando Tatis, and you're just like, wait a second, they're a small market team. You know what I mean? For many years, they didn't spend a lot of money because of that excuse that we're a small market team. Now, all of a sudden, after a pandemic, when people weren't allowed in stadiums, now all of a sudden they have deeper pockets than any other team in baseball. They didn't manipulate Tatis's service time, and they ended up giving him a 14-year extension worth $340 million after he's only played in like 140 games and only has like 500 at bats. So that's when I say to Kevin Mather, I can't believe what you're saying, that you guys are suffering financially or whatever, because the San Diego Padres are probably a smaller market team than you are, and they have deep pockets. So why don't you? You know what I mean? I just think it's just used as an excuse, and it
I don't
goes
know.
back to it goes back to what the CBA is going to look like next year. And I think that the result is going to end up being that the owners are going to have to open up their books somehow. And I think that that means that there's going to be some sort of cap or a salary floor or both.
Yeah, with the whole Padres thing, I mean, I wonder how much of that money is, future earnings, like what they're
Yeah.
planning on pulling in after getting this talent. Like, but if
Did you
these
see
guys
the
end up,
breakdown? He's going to make
of,
like 1 million this year, 2 million next year. And like
yeah,
back end, he makes like 36 or something like that.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
I see what they're doing, and it gives them flexibility. Because they could trade him off. In 5 or 6 years, maybe he has a bad season or something. They're not winning games, and they could say, oh, well, his AAV is only $24 million. It's not that much. Like, Trevor Bauer is making 40. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
they were smart. I think they were smart to make that move. But the point that I'm trying to make is a team like that. They gave Manny Machado the money that they gave him. They gave Eric Hosmer the money that they gave him. They traded for Clevenger. They traded for Yu Darvish. They traded for who was the other guy?
Blake
Blake
Snell.
Snell. They're spending money. They're doing what they have to do. So if the Padres can spend that kind of money, I'd have to imagine that a team like the Mariners can. So I don't know.
Well, they could at least do something. They don't have to go out and extend a guy 14 years for however
Right.
much money, but they could do something.
Yeah, they could do something exactly. And we're off topic, but that's what we do here in the bodega. Yeah, that's it. That was our topic for today. Coming up, we have Manny Acta, third base coach for the Seattle Mariners. Wow, it's like a Seattle Mariner themed episode. Was that on purpose?
Shout out to
I
Ken Griffey Jr.
right? Can we get him on the podcast? That'd be
and
awesome.
Ichiro, if you're out there.
Um, so we don't talk about the Kevin Mather situation because we talked to Manny Acta last week before this whole thing happened. But I did reach out to Manny and I asked him what his thoughts are on Kevin Mather, and we got the good old fashioned no comment. He didn't want to say anything regarding. I get it. I understand.
That's a pro.
He's a pro right there. So stick around. Manny Acta's coming right up. Peace out.
Peace.
Well, I grew up like just about every Dominican kid playing baseball and a little basketball here and there. And my love for the game, it was basically because around my neighborhood, I was a neighbor of George Bell growing up, Tony Fernandez. And then I used to see all those guys, with the nice cars, the nice houses, the nice clothes and all that kind of stuff. And we don't play football and we don't do any of the other stuff. We don't. Back in those days, we didn't used to grow 7-footers, and so NBA was out of the question up until another guy that I grew up with, Tito Hartford, Al Hartford's dad, playing the NBA. So it was normal, just around the neighborhood, and then. My dad always backed me up with the gloves and whatever I needed. And, I think I was caught into the managing thing early in my career. I caught to it because even when I was younger, I used to run teams in our neighborhood. And that's how everything started. My dad used to work in sugarcane factories as an accountant. So that's what they do in those sugarcane factories. They play a lot of baseball, and I grew up in that great atmosphere, just baseball 24/7, and that's how things got started. I used to love basketball and play a lot of basketball up until my dad, who had the vision, kind of pull me aside and say, "Hey, listen, how many Dominicans in the NBA?" Back then, there were none. And he said, "How many Dominicans in the MLB?" Well, a ton of them. Then you're not going to play basketball anymore. From today on, you're just going to play baseball, and that's it. So he had the best plan.
And given where you're from too, San Pedro de Macorís, right? I know that I've spoken to Julio and Rodney Linares, and they've spoken about you. And these are again another family from San Pedro de Macorís. What is it about San Pedro de Macorís that produces so many baseball players and families?
Well, because back in the days, all the sugarcane factories were in that area. And from way back when, a lot of the people that came from the islands to cut the sugar cane, and from Haiti and all that made like a great mix. And a lot of the people were very athletic. Also, the sugarcane factories, all of them had baseball teams, and they backed up baseball. So there was baseball all over the place there, and that kind of helped out. That area kind of had about 6 or 7, probably 6 sugarcane factories. They no longer exist. Probably 2 or 3 only left. But that was the main thing for baseball. It was a lot of people that had probably the right genes, the perfect height and athleticism. And then once everything started rolling with the Rico Cardis of the world and Joaquin Andujar and so forth, with Pedro Guerrero and George Bell and all that, then all of us wanted to be like them. And then we just continue to play. that area, it's pretty impressive, as you guys know. Some of the other areas have grown and have become better at producing baseball players, but you guys know how San Pedro de Macorís forever has been, the mecca pretty much of baseball back home.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned your dad. Tell me a little bit about your parents. First off, I always like to mention families in feature pieces. What are their names? What do they do for a living? Tell me a little bit about your parents.
Yeah, my dad, his name is Manuel, just like me. I'm Junior, basically. Manuel Elias Acta. My dad has always been an accountant. He's retired now. He's 78 years old, but he was an accountant for over 30 years for the sugarcane factories. He did all the budget for the different sugarcane companies that he worked for. He's at home, retired. My mom always was just at home taking care of us. We're five of us.
Mm.
We're two brothers, me and Jose, who works for Barnes and Nobles. He lives in New Jersey. And I have three sisters. Anaima, who's in baseball. She works as an agent for Octagon and for DPL in the Dominican Republic, Dominican Prospect League. And my sister Carmen, who follows me. She's retired. She used to be a teacher. She taught for over 30 years. And I have another sister who lives in Rhode Island, Aminta. So we're five of us. My mom is a Jehovah's Witness. She's always been a Jehovah's Witness since I've been alive, and it's a good combination. It was a good combination in our home because my dad is quite opposite of a Jehovah's Witness, so it was a good balance at home. And we couldn't be any prouder of being their kids. They did an outstanding job with us. They make sure that education was first in our house, and all of us have turned out to be okay.
Good. Um, Sorry, Luis, you have a question?
I was just
Oh, I heard you. So, oh, your mother's name. I didn't get your mother's name. Sorry.
Blanca,
Blanca.
Doña Blanca.
Doña
Nice.
Blanca.
Doña Blanca.
So when did you start to play baseball, and when did you start to realize that was something for you, like something, a realistic career possibility for you?
I started playing since I was 4 or 5 years old, but as a career type of thing was when I was around 12, 13. But I was a better pitcher than a shortstop back then. But that's when things started to roll a little bit. Once I got to the 14, 15, I had an opportunity to compete and do decent, and my name started to go around the area. And you mentioned earlier, Julio Linares.
Yeah.
He was the one, along with Rick Aponte, another scout for the Houston Astros, and Domingo Mercedes, who passed away. They were the one who basically discovered me. I was seen before by a couple of scouts, but they were the one who followed me and saw me play in an amateur team of the sugarcane where I was living at, the sugarcane factory. And they followed me up, and they signed me up, and it was outstanding. I mean, I at that point I started to go to college to become an agronomy engineer. It's
Mm.
going to be yeah, because that was a thing in my neighborhood. It was the sugarcane fields
Yeah.
and the oranges and stuff. So that's the only thing I knew. And the guy who was in best economic position, he had a Jeep, and he had a gun, and he had a hat, and
Mhm.
he had the girl. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna be an agronomist. And
Yeah.
so that was what I started going to college for, but didn't last long because baseball basically pulled me aside, and it was kind of interesting because my dad, he has never negotiated with us the education, and I was kind of scared, but I went to him and asked him if I could take a year off from college and see if I could get signed because, as you guys know, they don't play college baseball in the Dominican, so it's a free agent, free for all type of thing. So if you're going to college and you're working, because I was already working at a nursery, watering plants and doing all that kind of stuff, I wouldn't have enough time. So I was kind of scared, but I asked them. I said, "Hey, would you be mad if I take a year off school and see if I can get signed? And if I don't get signed, then I'll go back to school." And I was very happy because he understood and he said, "Yes, you got a deal. I'm going to give you a year. If you don't get signed to a professional contract, then you go right back to college." And it was awesome because I was an Astros fan my whole life, because I grew up idolizing Cesar Cedeno and Joaquin Andujar and Rafael Landestoy and all those guys, because the Astros always had Latin players
Yeah.
in their team, and Dickie Thon and those guys, Jose Cheo Cruz. So I grew up loving the Astros, and I like colors too. So I used to love that rainbow uniform. So back in those days when I was growing up, there was no internet, there was no baseball and TV every single day. So the only game that they would have on the radio at night or weekly were the games where the Dominicans were actually playing. That's what they would do. And the Astros had all those guys, the Cedeno, Andujar, Landestoy, Luis Pujols, and then they also had Cruz and they had Dickie Thon later on. So I was a fan of the Astros, and it happened that Julio Linares was a scout for the Astros, so he signed me. I got to sign with the team that I was a fan, and got to wear the rainbow in the minor leagues.
That's awesome.
That's
amazing.
Well, you said that you enjoyed pitching more though when you were growing up. But what did you actually get signed as?
Yeah, I was a really good pitcher, like in little league, and when I was 15 years old, because I was able to spin the ball, throw a lot of breaking balls, and I had a lot of success. But at the end of the day, a lot of people thought I didn't throw hard enough. So I used to play short and pitch, and then I ended up signing as a shortstop. And obviously, after a couple of years, I was moved because my tools weren't as great. So I became a utility player early in my career, and I quite honest, I don't know how the Astros kept me playing for 6 years in the minor leagues because, I'm a coach, I'm an evaluator, and I must have done some things that they like because my tools were short.
So when you were signed by the Astros, were you the first in your family to come to the States then? Were you here by yourself? Can you tell me about that experience?
Oh yeah, tough experience. Yeah, I came over. I was 18 years old. Obviously, didn't know a word of English. Actually, I knew a couple because in high school over there, just like here, they teach you English, but what they teach you, um, I am in the car is red, whatever, whatever they teach you in school. So I came over here, I didn't know anything in English, and it was really hard. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people feel that, the kids need to sign younger from Latin America, or be patient with them if they don't sign very young, because not everybody adjusts so fast to the life here in the States. Uh, First of all, we had to adjust to the language. I didn't understand a word of what my manager was saying when I got over here. I didn't like the food at first because they probably cook healthy and in a different way here. We might not cook as healthy, but our food is tasty. So I found it kind of sweet, the meat and stuff like that. I never eaten sweet meat, barbecue sauce and all that. Never eaten salad in my life the way you eat it over here. When I saw people, put blue cheese on top of that salad, I was gonna die. I'm like, what is that white stuff that they put in that salad?
I'm still like that.
So yeah.
I don't like
So it was hard. It was
creamy
very
stuff.
hard for me to. Yeah. So imagine, I never seen it before. So it was hard. The language, you get to a meeting, first meeting, an extended spring. our manager was Gary Talk, and well, he's speaking English. I didn't understand a word he was saying. And luckily, we had a coach, Rick Aponte, a Dominican guy who he was the guy who helped us out a little bit. But still, I found it very uncomfortable. And I said, wait a minute, I'm going to have to learn English quick here because I really don't like being in meetings, people talking, and I don't understand what they're saying. And after I became a coach, and I usually tell the guys, don't be afraid to say that you don't understand. First of all, you need to try to adjust and learn, but don't be afraid to say that you don't understand. Because when we first come over here, we are afraid to say that we don't understand. We feel like shame, or we just don't want to come right out. We think that it's going to make us less of a man if we say, I didn't understand what you said, or explain to me, or whatever. And that's how a lot of things get lost in the translation, because they told you a lot of times. So they would ask you, did you understand what I say? And you would say, yeah, but you're not understanding anything. So they tell you to turn left and you turn right. What are they going to say? Oh, this guy's dumb. I told him to turn right and he turned left. He told me that he understood. And it was really hard for us. For me, it was really hard, but I got right to it. I learned how to communicate in a couple of months. I used to read a lot of newspapers, and when you read the newspaper, then you learn how to write, because
Mhm.
that's how you see the words in there. You're just like, because because. Oh, that's how you write. How you write because
Yeah.
because. Okay, so I learned how to read and then learn how to write, and by the end of the season, I was able to communicate. And that's another thing. You need to have the courage to um, not fall for the peer pressure of the guys that come with you, because a lot of the guys that came with me from the Dominican or Venezuela or whatever they were, Colombia, um, they were trying to give me a hard time at first. Hey, why are you always hanging out with the American guys? Why are you always trying to talk to the American guys? Well, are you American now? I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I already speak Spanish. I know how
Yeah.
to speak Spanish. I need to learn how to speak English. That's how I'm gonna learn. Talking to this guy, I never been afraid of messing up. If I didn't pronounce a word right, and an American guy came over and tried to make fun of me, well, right away I would tell him, I know more Spanish than I know more English than you know Spanish. So
Mhm.
you can't make fun of me. And
Mhm.
I didn't care, and that's how I learned. A lot of the guys were afraid of made fun of and stuff like that, and I was just never afraid. And that was the reason why I picked it up so quick, and the reason why I ended up staying in the game, because as I mentioned, I didn't have the ability to play the game. I played 6 years. I played up to double A, and then after that I pretty much hit a wall there at double A. My tools they couldn't carry me any higher, and because of me learning English and being able to get along with people and stuff like that and liking the game, they kept me around, and I
Mhm.
made a career out of it. I got a funny story for you, and
Yeah.
I know I told this story a zillion times, but we had a we had a funny scenario. We were in Sarasota, Florida, at Twin Lakes Park, and back then in 1987, that's when I came over to the States. 1987. The closest thing to that place was a 7-Eleven and a Burger King. And they were giving us like English classes once, twice a week, just to learn how to, communicate baseball language type of thing. And Rick Aponte actually had a contest, and he said, I'm going to take all of you guys in the van over to Burger King. Whoever can order his meal, I'm going to pay for it. Whoever can't is going to get a glass of water. So I learned how to say chicken sandwich and vanilla shake. And I got in front of the cashier over there and I said, chicken sandwich and vanilla shake. And she started asking me, would you like any fries with that? And I didn't know what she was saying. I just said, chicken sandwich and vanilla shake. Would you like, ketchup, chicken sandwich and vanilla shake? And that's all I repeated. And she gave me my meal. Great. And I'm going to tell you, I ate chicken sandwich and vanilla shake for those 3 months.
Oh my
I
God.
used to walk those 3-4 miles over there, ate chicken sandwich and vanilla shake. And up until this date, I can't have any more of those chicken sandwiches from Burger King.
Yeah.
I puke if I see one, and no longer have vanilla shake either.
It's funny because we have a relative. I don't know if you know this, Luis, the story, but we have a relative who he came over from DR and they must have taken him to McDonald's or something, and they
I know the
asked for his
story.
order, and he ordered chivo. He wanted chivo from McDonald's.
Yeah, that's what he that's what he asked for. I remember that was at our birthday.
Was that your birthday?
No, I
Yeah,
think
we,
it might have been yours. I don't know.
we had a guy one time at a Kentucky KFC, and the lady asked him, "Would you like any ketchup?" And he said, "No, me no ketchup, me shortstop."
Oh my God!
You like
that's
any
great.
ketchup? She asked him ketchup. He goes, "Me no catcher, me shortstop."
That's
So-
great.
So, Manny, how does somebody go from being a player in an organization and then they keep you on? I know you said that you got along with a lot of people and you spoke the language and you were like friendly with everybody, but like, do they put you on some sort of program to then become manager, or did they sort of let you figure it out along the way?
Well, in my case, they knew that I liked the game, and they knew that that I learned how to speak English quick. And what they did was, my last season, they offered me the opportunity to be a player coach because of the fact that I could speak English. They sent me to a team so I could help the prospects who couldn't speak English. And the manager back then was Tim Tolman. He couldn't speak Spanish, so I was a liaison in between them. So I was kind of a player coach. They gave me the option. They told me, you're either gonna go home, release, or you can stay here and try to make a career as a coach. The way they do it is they handpick you. They can see which guys have passion for the game, which guys are respectful, and which guys have the ability to get along with people and probably able to teach. So after that season that I was the player coach, what the Astros did was they do scouting school, which you know anymore. Scouting school was run by the bureau before. So I went down to Florida to learn how to write reports, how to scout players, and they prepared me for it. And once I got out of scouting school, when I learned how to evaluate players, then I right away evaluated myself and say, wait a minute, you suck. You shouldn't be playing baseball. And right away I just called the farm director and said, hey, you know what? Can you guys just go? Okay, make me a coach, because I already saw that the OFP number back in those days. I used to use OFP, overall future potential, amounted to a guy who was going to be on riding buses and drinking coffee the rest of his life. So I said, okay, just make me a coach. And they started me the very next year in 1992. I was a full-time coach helping out Bob Abreu. Bobby Abreu was the project back then because he couldn't speak English. I was there to help him out in Asheville, North Carolina. And then after that, I just continued to manage. My first managing job, I believe I was like 24 years old, and I didn't even want to take it. I was kind of scared at the beginning because they offered me to manage in the New York Penn League. And the New York Penn League, it's usually for guys that come out of college. And you can get a fifth year senior sometimes at 22, 23 years old. And I told the farm director back then, Fred Nelson, I said, are you sure you want me to go manage guys that are almost my age? And he told me, don't tell them how respect, and you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to be okay. So I started managing at 24, and and for that it hasn't been easy, but we have enjoyed.
So the signal, it looks like it's coming in and out for you. I think I got the gist of what you were
You
saying.
guys froze.
You froze.
Okay.
You froze for a little bit, but I think we're back.
So this is actually a good
Okay, what did you guys?
No, I got it.
I got it. I got it. It was like it cut out
Okay,
a little bit.
okay.
It cut out a little bit. Yeah.
So
Okay.
a 24-year-old managing guys around the same age. So what do you say about today's game, where a lot of the managers sometimes are younger than the players that they're managing? You had Rocco Baldelli was managing in his mid 30s. Aaron Boone. I mean, Aaron Boone, I guess, was old enough at that point. But Cora for a while, guys like AJ Hinch, very young guys. What do you think about this new kind of influx of younger guys taking over these positions in baseball?
Well, it's a different cycle. Obviously, back when I started managing, and I started managing the big leagues at 37. I was the youngest one when I got up there. But um, back in the days, experience meant a lot, and that's not that's not um, that's that's not as important nowadays, because the people who run the front offices nowadays, they have a different way of looking at things. You know, the analytics that have taken over the game, which I always been a fan of, but that has created an environment starting from the minor leagues to the big leagues where they feel that they got everything under control, and you really just need to handle people, which this job has always been about handling people or working with people, however you want to say it. But back in the days, they felt that experience was would gather more, or will gain more respect out of the players. Nowadays, it's you really don't need to be old to be respected. You just need to, to have good communication skills. You need to be upfront with players, and you need to follow the program that the front office has. Everybody needs to work together, and so that's why you would see guys that jump right into manage in the big leagues without even managing in the minor leagues. That's something that didn't happen in the past. And I don't know, maybe at some point the cycle will go back. I don't have anything against it. I did have my opportunities, and I was young too myself. And as a matter of fact, I never managed above A ball, and I got the opportunity to be named manager in the big league. So, but the times have changed definitely, and I'm happy for whoever is getting the opportunity. The other thing is, a lot of those guys that they're throwing right into it, um, they are fresh off playing, so they kind of know how to deal with today's players, and they have a plan. The front office nowadays is more involved than ever. They finally, I wouldn't say finally, but they they found out that, hey, we can work together. It's not like in the past where the manager is just down there in the clubhouse running the baseball team. The front office is way up there. We don't have to talk to each other or whatever. We're on the same boat now, and the GMs finally have discovered too that I hire you, so you're gonna have to work with me, and we're gonna have a plan together. And that's the reason why you see more input from the front office, because hey, we're working together. I hire you. If you don't want to work with me, if you don't want to follow the plan that we have here, then I fire you, because I was the one that brought you over.
Was it like that when you took over for were they still the Expos, or were they the Nationals when you took over that job?
It was the Nationals. I started in the big leagues with the Expos, but it was as a third base coach. I had a great opportunity over there by Frank Robinson, who was the one who gave me my first shot in the big leagues. And then after that, I went over to New York and coached third base for a couple of years with Omar Minaya, Tony Bernazar, and the manager was Willie Randolph. It was just 2 great years, 05, 06. Had the opportunity to see David Wright, Carlos Beltran, Carlos Delgado, Jose Reyes. It was El Duque Hernandez, Pedro Martinez, um, Tom Glavine. I mean, it was a great ball club.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I had my chance to manage the Nationals. They were the Nationals. And when I started managing at first, it was just starting, but it wasn't still like it is right now. You had the responsibility of the clubhouse, and you did communicate with the GM, but it wasn't like it is right now. And I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's good. I think
Mm-hmm.
if we're all in the same boat and we're working for the same company, we should work together.
Yeah.
And it has changed, and people understand now that I'm hiring you, so you're gonna have to follow the plan and work with me, basically.
Okay. So I'm gonna jump back again.
Mhm.
First off, I have a question that I have to get off my head because before you came on, we were doing a little bit of research, and it says something about. Do you have Lebanese ancestry, or is
Yeah,
that,
that's where you get that last name. Yeah, my
okay?
my ancestors, that they came from the Lebanon to the Dominican Republic. I would say a little bit over 100 years ago.
Okay.
My great grandpa, yeah, he came from the Lebanon. I think when the dictator in the Dominican Republic, Trujillo,
Trujillo.
was a dictator that was there. He took some refugees from uh, from the Lebanon in the Dominican, and so that's when my grandfather came over, and that's where the funky last name comes from.
Okay. It was on Wikipedia, and we were like, we're not sure because anybody could put anything on Wikipedia.
And Wikipedia, you can't trust that. They always say
Exactly.
that I play first base, and I never played first. I mean, I signed as a shortstop.
Yeah.
So
That's
A-
nice.
and so it's funny because I was listening to an interview recently. This is completely out of left field, but it was with Salma Hayek, and she's actually half Lebanese. I had no idea she's half Lebanese too. I didn't know that. But two Latinos, prominent Latinos, both Lebanese ancestry. Okay, sorry. So you transitioned from player to coach. When did you get your first managing opportunity? And tell me a little bit about that. Like how at first, what was your managing style, and then what did you evolve into eventually?
well, when I first started in the minor leagues in 1994, I was managing the New York Penn League, and obviously there weren't as much information out there about the analytics, sabermetrics, or anything like that. So I was just managing, just following the footsteps of Felipe Alou and some of those guys, just seeing them go about their business. And then once I started getting into reading more stuff, then I understood more of the game, and lean more toward the analytic way, and became open-minded, because that's what's important. Just because let's say Casey Stengel was a great manager, or Jim Leland back in the days, or whoever, or Billy Martin, that doesn't mean I have to continue doing the same thing uh, the way they were doing it, because nowadays, with all the information we have in hand, they have a zillion proof in front of you, that, hey man, this is not the right way to do it. You this is the way you should be able to play the game, to take advantage and maximize those 27 outs. So when I first got to the big leagues, I was still on the fence, and I was working for Frank Robinson and Willie Randolph, guys that were from the old school. I turned into analytics more through a good friend of mine that was one of the clubhouse kids in New York.
Hmm.
Yeah. This kid, Mike, was still good friends up until today. He he used to talk to me after picking up, my underwears and all that, to wash them. He used to talk to me about baseball, and he was into the analytics and reading all those books. And he called me aside one day. He said, "Hey, coach, do you know that if you let a guy swing the bat with a runner on first base and no outs, he has a better chance to score that if you bunt him over to second, if he's at second base with one out?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So he pulled the book out and showed me a bunch of all that stuff, and those are things that growing up in the DR, people talk about analytics and sabermetrics. I remember hearing the beer vendor guy talk about analytics basically because I could hear him say, "Don't bunt, don't be giving outs, don't be giving away the outs, don't bunt, don't bunt." So the beer vendor didn't know about analytics, but he was talking about it. I mean, this is analytics back then. It was just not called, sabermetrics or however you call it today. That was good info, except that now we have them in the computers and the laptops. We have so many at bats that have been recorded where they can prove you that that's true. So when that kid spoke to me, I listened to him. He gave me a book. He gave me a couple of books. That was in 2005, I believe it was. He gave me Moneyball, and he gave me um, uh, Mind Game, which is my favorite baseball book. Mind Game, it's a book that was done by Baseball Prospectus, and it was the how the Red Sox became a champion, for the first time. And I fell in love with that book because by then there were a lot of things that I didn't think it makes sense in the game, and I wasn't doing it myself. And then when I read this book, I'm like, see, I was right. Like, how a lot of people think you should start a fight. When you start a fight, the team is gonna, really, get going and win games. Well, in that book, he detailed the record of just about every team to start a fight in the big leagues. It doesn't help. you know so why do you want to start a fight really thinking that you're going to inspire players when all you can do is get somebody hurt? And there were a ton of stuff in there that I learned. They have some historical stuff too that I learned in there, like the Red Sox were the last team to have an African American player to play in the big leagues and all that kind of stuff. So this kid got me into it, and since then, when I started managing and all that, well, I have always been on the side of the analytics. I took a lot of criticism when I started first, especially in DC, because the average fan back in those days, or a lot of the reporters that still didn't want to jump into the new way of baseball, they wanted to see bunts and they wanted to see hit and runs and all that kind of stuff. It's like it's really doesn't help us much. I mean, there's a time and place for everything in the game. There's a time to bunt, and there's a time to maybe, perhaps, do a hit and run here and there. But it's been proven that a lot of those things, as romantic as we want to be with the old game, it just really has no place nowadays unless you have a lineup that is suited for it, and you're not going to end up winning. So I took some criticism at first because the people wanted to see, the bunting and all that kind of stuff. And if you don't have the players, if you don't have the talent, well, if you can't mash away and hit home runs and have 4 or 5 guys that can really hit, then you're not gonna score enough runs, and then people are gonna go, oh, well, he's not manufacturing run. Yeah, bunting and running and stuff. You can't run just to run. You got to run somebody that has at least a 74, 75% chance of being safe. You can't just run just so people can say in the stands, oh, he's aggressive, he's running. But everybody's getting thrown out, dude. You only have 27 outs. You can't be getting people thrown out just so people think that you're aggressive, because then you're wasting your 27 outs. So I didn't pay attention to it. I always stuck to it. And then I ended up going to Cleveland, and it was a very analytical inclined team, and that really helped me a lot.
Manny, your mic sounds unplugged.
How about now? Better?
Yep.
Sorry. I think a lot of it has to do with that feeling. I've always compared, you're an expert. I'm not. I'm just, I'm from this side. But my interpretation of when people want to see bunting or stolen bases is because it feels productive, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is productive. You know what I mean? Like, I trust the numbers in that regard. I don't want to give away outs. Unless
Yeah,
if the
well,
batter
stolen
unless if
bases
yeah,
are, Manny, stolen bases are productive if you're getting to second base
right.
or if you get into third base. I'm not saying, they're not. I used to tell people back then, well, give me 5 Jose Reyes or give me 3 or 4 Ricky Henderson. I'll run everybody out of the ballpark.
Right.
But if you don't have him, you can't just be running just to be aggressive and try to manufacture run because you're just going to be giving outs away.
Right. Exactly.
I have I have a question. It's not exactly what we're talking about right now, but and you don't have to admit to anything because I know you're involved with Major League Baseball, but I feel like we're living through the era of it all started happening sort of at the same time. Guys were throwing harder, guys were hitting more home runs, further home runs. And then we kind of start getting a feeling that the balls are juiced, right? And now recently they said MLB came out and said that they will be changing the balls slightly a little bit to kind of limit the amount of home runs that are being hit. Are you are you okay with the balls being changed, or do you kind of wish that they would just leave it alone?
Uh, I don't think it's going to change much, to tell you the truth. I saw the memo and I read some articles, and it's just going to be a few feet difference. And these guys are mashing the ball way out there. The game has, the balls. Yeah, over the last couple of years, you could tell that they're traveling farther. It's no secret. But these guys nowadays, I mean, these guys train the 12 months out of the year. These are different animals. Back in those days, those guys used to go home during the off season, didn't make enough money. They had to work bartending or UPS or whatever. And then they used to come to spring training to get in shape and play baseball. Well, nowadays these guys they make enough money. They're smarter. They got more information. They have their personal trainers. They train during the off season. They don't need to go play winter ball or have a different job to make ends meet. So they're beast, man. And then it goes both ways. And then the pitchers. I remember. I mean, it's not that I'm 100 years old, but even when I started playing, when a guy threw 95, you could find one or two in the team. And it was like, whoa, Tom Gordon, when I first started playing, Tommy Gordon, he's throwing 94 and with that breaking ball. And nowadays, every team have 6, 7 guys, 8, 9, 10 guys that can throw 95 to 100. And it's 60 feet, 6 inches. Still, that's another thing that people are talking about, maybe moving the mound back a couple of feet so the hitters can have a little bit of a chance because what's happened is it's the long ball game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everybody's trying to hit home runs because everybody wants to get paid, and that's how you score a run quicker and more runs. So what happened is, you guys seen it, the swings have been altered a little bit and trying to get into a launch angle and lift the ball, which is the right thing to do. To do, you don't want to be hitting ground balls. The ground balls are out in the big leagues, and the ground balls are not extra bases unless they're down the line. So you do want to hit line drives and you want to hit home runs. You just need to know who you are. If you're not a guy who's going to hit for power, then you need to hit line drives, and once in a while you're going to hit your home runs. But then, since now they changing the swing a little bit and everybody's trying to hit home runs, and these pitchers now they throw so hard, and we have so much information on everybody. They get to this level, and the guys elevate the ball, or the guy find a hole on you. And since guys got better command and control at the big league level, they just pound that hole there. And then you see the ton of strikeouts because pitching, it's basically every year has gotten better. We're setting records for strikeouts year after year after year. You can look it up. It's because the game has changed. People are going after numbers, after money, after home runs. So changing the swing, pitchers are changing. They're stronger. They throw harder. They know about spin rate and everything else. They got all the machines to work during the off season, and it has become a game where I can understand why some people want to see more action, more money, more running, and all that. Because when I was growing up and started playing, when Rob Deere used to strike out 100 times, and I know that you guys are very young and you probably don't even know who Rob Deere is, but Rob Deere was a guy who played for the Milwaukee Brewers. Back in those days, used to strike out a lot. And when he used to hit the 100 mark, it was like, whoa, he struck out 100 times already. What happens nowadays? I mean, you get
Yeah.
guys that strike out 100 times halfway through the season, and it's not a big deal because if he can still be productive, hitting extra bases and getting the OBP and the OPS that we desire to make him productive, we're like, no, okay, he strikes out a lot, but he hits a ton of extra bases and he hits home runs, he scores runs, he gets on base. That's good enough. Although some people, would defer that, hey, strikeout is as good as a ground ball to shortstop. Well, that depends.
Mhm.
Strike out with a runner on third and 1 out and the infield back. It's not the same as
No.
a ground ball to shortstop. But the game has changed a lot, and for various reasons. And going back to the baseball, I don't think it's going to make a big difference. I just still think that we have a zillion guys with the unbelievable stuff from 60 feet 6 inches, and it's just going to continue to be tough for the hitters.
Yeah. So, since your days managing, you did some time on ESPN Deportes, and then you got hired by the Seattle Mariners. And third base coach, you were bench coach for a bit, and I think you're back at third base again, right? This year.
Yes, I don't want to correct you, but I actually wasn't working for ESPN
Oh,
Deportes. I was working on Baseball Tonight, and yeah, and once in a while I would go over and help out with ESPN
gotcha.
Deportes, but my exclusivity was with Baseball Tonight. And since I speak Spanish too, then I could go bounce back and forth. But yeah, and that helped me a lot. It helped me a lot because those were 2 years where I was outside looking in,
Yeah.
and I learned how to do things differently. Because when I first started managing, I was a little bit too old school, in not on the way you play the game, but on the discipline type of side with the players. And you know, I worked for Frank Robinson and I worked for Willie Randolph. It's not like when I came up to the big leagues, I was right next to Joe Madden and some of those guys. So I was a little discipline oriented, and by the end of my time, that wasn't going very good with the players. But I didn't have anybody to teach me other way, and I had to learn the hard way. Nowadays, the last 5 years that I've been here, this is my 6th year in Seattle. It's been fantastic because those 2 years in ESPN, I got to see, hey, wait a minute, this guy is doing things different. It's not like me where hey, you need to have a hat on, and hey,
Hmm.
don't cut off your uniform, and guys want to have fun nowadays. I didn't know any better. I didn't have anybody to teach me, so it was rough. And at the end, I loosened up a little bit, and now this last 5 years here in Seattle, hey, just let people be themselves, and as long as they do their job and respect each other. But you know, I came from the old school, and I try to mix things up, and that's why I was hired at
Hmm.
first. Because when I got hired, it was because of my character. I was developing kids, doing rebuilding. So hey, we got to do things this way. This is not a circus. People running around, with different type of shirts and all that kind of stuff. And at the end, that's not as important. That's not the most important thing. But I was very young, and I didn't want anybody to think, I mean, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's running a clown circus over there. They're running all over the place with raggedy pants and all that kind of stuff. But times have changed, and I understand now that that's not the most important thing.
So do you are you so okay, so I'm going to try to frame this question in a
Mhm.
way here. So one of the things that I've been talking to a lot of guys about is the fact that there aren't many Latino managers in baseball, but there's an increasing Latino population of players. I think we're up to close to 30% of players are Latinos in baseball, but there's only four managers. I think there's only one GM, Al Avila, and I think it's just one owner in Artie Moreno. Um, why haven't there been more opportunities for Latin managers? Like, have you interviewed for jobs? Is it possible that you could be hired in? I mean, you can't predict the future, but is your goal to manage again at some point?
Yeah, I would love to manage again at some point because I was very young when I did it, and all I had was rebuilding jobs, which goes to people like me, in a lot of cases. And I will always wanted an opportunity to have a team that can compete because I want to see what I can do with it. But that being said, I'm not bitter because I did have my opportunity. I would like to see more guys get the chance. What has happened is that as the game has changed, the front offices have changed, and the guys that are in the front office now, they can't relate as much with a lot of the Latin players because um, back in the days, the guys that were GMs were like more experienced guy, and
Mhm.
it was kind of different. So these guys nowadays, they identify the guys that think that could work with them, and I don't blame them. You have to look for the people that you're going to feel comfortable with. What I always tell our guys is that embrace the new game and prepare yourself for it. If you know that the game nowadays is based in analytics, and that's what the 30 GMs like, then you need to embrace analytics.
Mhm.
You can't be continue to try to be old school just because whoever was your hero growing up in Latin America was old school, because then they're not going to hire you.
Mhm.
That's not what they're looking for. The 30 front office are looking for someone that it's analytical inclined. So I just it's a different game nowadays, and I think that the job that Alex did in Boston really helped us because a lot of GMs can see, hey, they can handle a big market team, a team that
Yeah.
can win, and there are a few guys that are going to get their shot, their opportunities. And I last time I interviewed was with the Baltimore Orioles like 3-4 years ago,
Huh.
and was a little disappointed 2 years ago when there were 8 openings. I thought that I was going to get a couple interviews because just about every year I get an interview. I used to get an interview just about every year since I stopped managing in Cleveland. But all of a sudden there were 8 openings, and I didn't even get an interview. And I was like, oh wow,
Wow.
it looks like my window has been shot. But you just got to continue to prepare yourself and hope that that the cycle comes back and you get another shot.
Yeah. It seems like nowadays you either have to be very young or you have to be very like Tony La Russa who just got hired again. You know what I mean? Like either very young or very old. Um, so with the Seattle Mariners, they there was kind of a running joke about the Mariners trading so much. There's always a trade with the Mariners all the time. Is your team? Do you think the Mariners are ready to compete this year? Are you guys coming into camp with the team that you want, or is there a couple of pieces that you think the Mariners need to make to compete in the AL West this year?
The plan is for next year.
Okay.
Uh, Next year, it's where the Mariners have mapped out to be able to go for it, and we understand that. That doesn't mean we're not going to try to win this year,
Hmm.
and that we're not ready to compete. But the plan has been mapped out. So the top prospects that we have in the minor league will be here next year, ready to go, full blast with some experience this year. Guys like Jared Kelenic and Julio Rodriguez and Logan Gilbert, who's one our top pitching prospect down there, and a few more of those pitchers that we have down there, Emerson and George Kirby and some other ones. So when those guys are ready on the team, that's where we feel that the Mariners are going to be ready to go for it. And that doesn't mean that we're laying out and allowing people to step on us, but 22 has always been our plan.
Yeah.
Nice.
And my friend up here, Luis, is a Red Sox fan, so he'll take pride in the Mariners signed James Paxton back, doing to the Yankees essentially what the Yankees did to the Cubs, trading Aroldis Chapman for Gleyber Torres and then signing Gleyber Torres. The Yankees traded Justice Sheffield to Seattle for James Paxton, and now they have now they got James
Now
Paxton.
both are going to be in the rotation.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I wanted to ask you before we go about Impacta Kids.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this organization.
Yeah, that's my baby. That's our foundation. I grew up in it's called Ingenio Consuelo, sugar cane factory over there. And I still have my parents live over there. And it was kind of a dream when I was growing up. I told a friend of mine, you always have people in town that have money and then they leave, or you always feel like they don't impact the community despite having money and all that. So kind of as a kid thing, I told my friend, I said, man, I wish I could make some money someday to see if I'm just going to turn my back on our community, because I just, a kid thing. And well, I ended up becoming a major league manager, and when I became a major league manager, I decided to have the foundation because the Washington Post and the Washington Times came down to my hometown to find out where I grew up and where I played baseball. So we went to this field where I used to play, and the grass was up to my knees. You couldn't find home plate, second base, first base, nothing. And I felt so bad. And it was because the sugarcane factory has been gone. The government just got rid of them, and they were the one who used to maintenance the baseball field, do the maintenance there. So I said, okay, I'm going to start the foundation, and we're going to build 2 little league baseball fields here, and have an educational center. Well, I ended up getting the managing job in DC, and then I ended up managing in Cleveland. So throughout those years, with the help of some people and the Cleveland Indians that help us out too, we were able to build 5 baseball fields. We built 5 baseball fields in there, right where we have the foundation. Then we have an educational center where we have teachers, help the kids with the homework. We help older people with computers and stuff like that. So it's awesome, and it's something that makes my parents and my family proud, and it makes me proud too when I go over the weekend and see over 400 kids playing baseball there. And then besides that, when we were in Cleveland and in DC, we helped some kids with with grants to go to college, and we do it back home too. So it's something that we're very proud of, because we just helping kids through sports and education. And we always said that you can't, like John F. Kennedy said, just don't ask all the time, what can the government do for you? What can you do for your government? So this is a great complex. It's probably the best public baseball complex in the Dominican Republic. It is public because that was the promise that I made the government. They allow me to build on the land with the promise that it wasn't going to be privatized. I can't run any type of business there, academies or anything like that. It's just for the community, and it's awesome. We have I also have a little league program there, and 3 or 4 more little league programs there operate there, once we were done with that complex, now it's just about maintenance. Then we gone out and expand. We built a baseball field in a school back home, and just a couple of months ago, before I came over here, or just a month ago, we built a baseball field and named it after George Bell in another sugarcane factory town where I used to be, where I grew up too, because my dad worked on the sugarcane factories, so he used to be moved around a little bit. So my youth was split between a place called Santa Fe and Consuelo, which is the place where my parents still live. So it was awesome. We honored George, naming the field after him because he's from there. As I told you at the beginning of the interview, he was my neighbor when I was a kid, and it's unbelievable. I mean, we impact the life of all those kids, and it's great. It's impactakids.org for the people who wants to see our work, and it's something that we did because I told the people in our community that I couldn't fix everybody's problem by handing out $100 bill.
Yeah.
Number one, because I don't have it. Number two, because $100 are not going to fix your problems forever. And I wanted to leave something for the community that was going to last hundreds of years, and the grandkids of the kids that are there will be able to take advantage of. So that's my baby. Very proud of it, and we'll continue to push and help the community.
That's incredible. That's really good. And just there's some things that maybe people don't see that are beneficial of a program like this. You're keeping kids off of the streets. They're playing baseball. Maybe that creates an opportunity. They're getting educated. So that's amazing. And thank you for doing that. So for those listening, it's impactakids.org.
.org.
Okay, Manny. So what advice would you give to a kid, let's say, that walked into Impacta Kids and wants to become a baseball player or something? What would you say to him?
Education first. You have to educate yourself. Not everybody, actually, the percentage of players who make it to the big leagues is very low. And I try to be honest with the parents, because that's the biggest problem we have nowadays. Every parent want their kid to be a big leaguer and make money and get me out of poverty. But the truth is, you need to get educated, because that's going to help you along the way. And not everybody can be a big leaguer, but the big leaguers need engineers, accountants, teachers, doctors, lawyers, all that kind of stuff. And I always tell those kids, hey, even if you make it to the big leagues, you can only be a baseball player until you're 38, 40 years old.
Right.
If you do have a career, it's going to stay with you forever. And just the facts, straight facts. It's only a very low percentage of players make it to the big league. So you have to prepare yourself for life after baseball. And also, if you educate yourself, you don't have to be a Major League Baseball player, because I wasn't. I became a coach and then a manager, and I made a nice life out of baseball. And there's not only jobs for a manager. You can be a coach, you can be a scout, you can be, work in the front office, you can be a trainer, but all that comes with education. And also, when you educate yourself, if you do make it big, then you're not going to mess up. You're going to be able to take care of your money. You're going to be able to help your family, and you're not going to be able to, to embarrass your family by doing something that you're not supposed to, because you didn't educate yourself. So to me, education comes first. And that's one of the things that we do in the complex. We have a little league program. If the kid is not in school, or if doesn't have good grades, you're not going to play baseball with us. As simple as that.
Good. Well, again, thanks again, and check out his website, impactakids.org. Bueno, Manny, muchas gracias y good luck this season.
Thank you, Manny.
Gracias a ustedes. Thank you. All right, Louis, you guys take care. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.